From Beyond Marketing, it's the 20-Minute Call, a podcast about the dreamers, boundary pushers, rebels, and champions of the skydiving industry. Each episode is a narrative journey highlighted by the highs, lows, and luck that the skydiving industry delivers, as told by the most influential people within the sport. If you've ever dreamed of becoming a skydiver, perhaps opening a drop zone, or becoming the next world champion, check out the 20-Minute Call hosted by me, James LeBarry. My guest today is one of the rare individuals in our sport to claim world championships in multiple disciplines. With over 28,000 jumps, Ian Bobo has reached the pinnacle of competitive skydiving, winning gold in both formation skydiving and canopy piloting in 2006. He is the co-founder of Flight-1 and the PD Factory team, two organizations that have helped shape the modern landscape of skydiving. Through Flight-1, Ian has educated thousands of skydivers, both civilian and military, transforming how canopy flight is taught and understood. A true innovator, Ian developed the air-to-air program, invented the Removable Deployment System, or RDS, and helped pioneer the use of the supine Mutant harness system, along with, most recently, the SIM and the PLA, which we'll talk about later. He's also helped drive the development of the Flight-1 curriculum used around the world today. Ian holds 3 world records in both FS and canopy formation, was named Skydiving Magazine's Skydiver of the Year in 2005, and was inducted into the International Skydiving Hall of Fame in 2021. From the fjords of Norway to the cliffs of the Grand Canyon, Ian has led high-performance canopy expeditions to some of the most stunning locations on Earth. And through it all, his passion for flight has never faded. After more than 30 years in the sport, he still jumps, still teaches, and still inspires. It's an honor to welcome Ian Bobo to the 20-Minute Call. Hey, Ian.
Hey, James. Thank you for that amazing intro. It's pretty cool to hear it all in one blurb like that. Overwhelming, actually.
Yeah, you have this, for our listeners that can't see you, you almost have an aw shucks look, like looking down at the floor. Like, yeah, I guess that's me.
Yeah, I'm not one for the spotlight much. Even Zoom calls make me a little uncomfortable. I often don't make eye contact with my TV or with my camera even.
Then you must be especially uncomfortable of late because there's been a lot of attention thrown your way. I just recently saw you at PIA Symposium, and you all were really the stars of the show at your booth, seeing this SIM device that, for those that haven't seen it, and I'm going to actually reference my mom, who's an avid listener to this podcast, who hasn't seen the SIM, but the best way I could describe it is this fully immersed simulation with virtual reality, but almost like there's a fan blowing on you, as if you're really feeling the breeze, and the graphics or the interface of what you're looking at looks so real that it is really replicating the closest thing of being under parachute. Now, that was the non-scientific approach of why this is unique. Maybe you can fill in the gap of, man, this is something that this sport has never seen before. Can you just talk about that before we get into you? Because that's what everyone's talking about right now in the industry.
Yeah, sure. It's definitely where I've been spending a lot of my time over the last 5 years. A lot of my passion for this project is shown through, hopefully. And the backstory is we had a incredible opportunity with an old friend that I used to work with at Performance Designs, an engineer that we shared space. I was an engineer at PD for a while there in around 98 to 2002 timeframe. And we got to know Bill Nager there as a colleague. And he was this inventor who came to me about 7 years ago. And he said, he's not even really a jumper. He's just an amazing automation engineer. And he said, I've got this idea for this amazing simulator. I think I can make something a lot better than what's on the market. And he literally showed me this structure in his garage that was strapped to this girder. Sort of like the rest was history after that. I was completely, from an engineering and tech background, completely overwhelmed with this robotic automation device he'd created to help manipulate the jumper on all 3 axis of motion. And he was looking for basically for partner, and in Flight-1 and through me taking this thing to market to sort of like revolutionize the VR simulation space that exists. The field basically has been doing the same thing for a lot of years, decades, and they haven't changed and evolved much. And the software itself that we're using is not that revolutionary. It's actually the hardware and the dynamics that he's created, that he utilized our expertise and the feeling of skydiving and the collaboration with active pilots and instructors. It was really a perfect union of his invention and then our know-how in the sport and our educational system, our client base, our worldwide market. And so we spent the last 5 to 6 years developing this thing sort of behind the curtain. I was effectively the software engineer / test dummy / project manager / like all the things. But basically, when going back to my engineering roots and becoming sort of a systems analyst of getting components to work together and working with Bill on all the hardware and software needs, and we put this thing together and released it at PIA with great success, and really created effectively the most real experience as far as a training tool that's out there, and just a general flight experience. And the byproduct of that, and the main reason why we were interested in this, was to make pilots better, quicker, in a safer environment than actual jumping. And a lot of the opportunities that we've been faced with Flight-1 have had to do with engineers with ideas and inventions coming to our company and saying, hey, will you guys work with me on this and make it better, take it to market, realize the vision, realize the dream. And that's effectively what we've done.
It was very well received. Is this going to be mostly for military application because of just the sheer cost of this, or is there an opportunity that civilians get to use this product?
Yeah, we definitely were targeting our primary market, and even the name is S1M, which is sort of a play on words for SIM, which stands for Simulator 1 Military. But realistically, the interest was so good and so positive that we've already been approached by certain drop zones, tunnel owners. Like this, the civilian side has actually been very responsive. And so there's a huge market potentially to kind of follow the model of the iFly wind tunnel models, that, these tunnels kind of popping up around and then perhaps building simulators inside or connected to or at nearby drop zones. Our plan is to sort of mirror what iFly did in the early days. It was actually SkyVenture at the time, you might recall. And they sort of like built a couple base units, even the unit that was here in Orlando, the original unit. And then they started popping up in various locations, sort of potentially funded or partially funded by the company. But then once they got traction, and they turned into a franchise model. And so we're definitely thinking about building another location, another unit on the West Coast for our clientele. And hopefully it'll be one of those things where drop zones perhaps can start to see the value with alongside their tunnel training and their military / schoolhouse exercises, and regular AFF students can get time in there. And it would be sort of like leasing time in a tunnel, or renting time in a tunnel, renting time in the sim, to get the air time, to get the sim time, in addition to the direct sales options that we're we're pursuing with various military groups and stuff, commands around the world.
Fascinating. If you're a DZO or DZM listening to this podcast and you're not using Burble, I've got a question. Why not? If the reason is price, what's the cost of your time? Other booking and manifest softwares are a one-size-fits-all. Burble was built from the ground up by a DZO for DZOs to maximize efficiency. Now, isn't that nice? There's no software that compares. Choose Burble. Ian, I think what is, for anyone that's listening, will recognize quickly is you're an engineer who happens to be an incredible skydiver with your track record. I'm curious, did 10-year-old Ian Bobo, was there any indication that you would live the life that you have been living?
I think that if you asked my parents that, they probably would not be too surprised, I guess. But I was definitely the son of an engineer, the son of a pilot. I was highly influenced by aviation. 10-year-old Ian was always looking skyward. There's like every picture of me was, as a child, was like, if a plane flew by, I was looking up, and fascinated with, just like a lot of skydivers, fascinated with jumping off of things and building, small parachuting replicas. And I was really big into radio controlled aircraft building and stuff with my dad. My dad was a consummate home builder in the EAA space. So he built kits in our we never had a car in our garage my entire youth, my entire life. It always had an aircraft in it that was being in some state of production. And my dad was very scholastic, very particular, very much like, I don't fall far from him in terms of my engineering ways and things. And then I have this pretty cool mashup, I think, of my mom and my dad, because my mom was much more spiritual, much more into her own, more of a dream weaver kind of a headspace, and all about heart and mind and taking care of others, and she was very much, she was a counselor, a therapist, and so she very much was one of those like go for your dreams kind of a person, identify what you want to do and go for it, live your life. Where my dad was much more conservative engineering type, so I kind of have both, a little bit, a nice mashup there of the two that I'm very thankful for.
Are your parents still alive today?
They are. We unfortunately separated when I was younger, around 16. But I still have very close relationships with them both. And my mother was actually very instrumental in, I probably would have jumped without her nudge, but it was a cool kind of a side story. I've shared this one before, but I told her when I was 16, like I was completely enthralled with all things that fly. And then I, of course, saw the videos, saw the human flight element of skydiving in some mall somewhere. I think when I was probably 15, I saw a drop zone in Georgia was advertising for, tandem skydiving, and they had, a VHS reel on loop playing skydiving scenes, and people flying in the air and whatnot. And so I basically gathered up all the information, gathered up all the cards and the brochures and whatnot. And then I was visiting my mom in the summers from back in Pennsylvania, and I went to her first, and that was like when I was 16. It was like, showed her all this stuff, and she could see the excitement, the passion, and like I was like, I'm doing this when I'm 18. It's happening. I'm so stoked for this, and it's going to be like everything I'd ever hoped to do, and whatever. She just saw saw all the. And then what she did was super cool. Is she supported me. She didn't say yes or no. She was just like, okay, that's cool. That's great, and she wouldn't really bite though, and what she did was secretly snuck into my room later and captured all that information, all those brochures. And then she contacted the drop zone and got me a gift certificate that's 2 years later on my 18th birthday. she gave to me on my birthday with this like, amazing card of like, go for your dreams. You can make this happen. Be who you can be, all this kind of thing. And just very much like lit the fire. I mean, I probably would have done it anyway, but she sort of kicked me out of the nest, so to speak, towards it with that nudge, supportive nudge. And then the rest was history after that. After the first jump, like a lot of us, I dove headfirst into it. And
do you have siblings?
my sister, yeah, I have one sister from my mom and my father's marriage, and then I have a couple of stepbrothers and sisters from a remarriage. But yeah, I got an amazing sister. She's jumped as well. I've been on a few tandems with her, and yeah, she's an amazing spirit as well.
I imagine that all your stepsisters and brothers and your immediate sister think that you're probably the coolest brother that there is going around. I'd imagine.
Well, I don't know. My one of my stepbrothers was a U.S. Naval Academy graduate and pilot for the Navy. He just graduated recently, and he's a pretty cool sibling offspring. But yeah, we definitely not your average. All my cousins and any kind of family, reunions were all about Ian the skydiver, kind of thing. So yeah, I got an amazing family network though, for sure. I've been blessed in that regard.
So you made your first jump at 18. Which drop zone was that?
It was in a small drop zone in rural Georgia called Warm Springs, Georgia, Free Fall Ranch. And it was literally before I started college, my 18th birthday, the summer after I turned 18. And it was like one of those, I mean, not quite Fandango, but like all the student rigs were in the back of an El Camino, and it was like parked under a shed. This little, the first jump course was in this abandoned prison that was on the airport that they turned into the drop zone. It was like, like classic way to get into the sport, I guess you could say. Cessnas only, and just people that just loved jumping and wanted to teach others. And fortunately, I had a lot of really amazing mentors, and then ended up at Georgia Tech and found a bunch of other amazing teammates that had like minds and like spirits. And that's what kind of kicked off the career aspect of it, I guess.
You mentioned going to Georgia Tech. Did you join the skydiving club the very first year?
Yeah, like I made the first jump and then showed up on campus for whatever it is, like Student Appreciation Day or whatever, and they've got all the clubs, lined up, the rugby club, the chess club, the da-da-da-da, and then it's like, skydiving club? What? I didn't even know that was possible. And sure enough, yeah, they have this huge history, one of the oldest skydiving clubs in the country, national champions, and like this huge lineage of legends. Steve Snyder went to Georgia Tech. He's like the first dude who ever did a baton pass ever in free fall. These crazy college kids back in the late 50s or whatever, borrowing military surplus rigs and then just kind of flying each other. And yeah, there was this amazing history. There was like a notebook this thick of 20 years of a skydiving club at a university I just fed right into the system, and I had a athletic background with sports. And so I was like, wait a minute, you can compete in skydiving. What is this all about? And I can, and then just kind of peeling back the layers. And then I was like, I'm in, all in on all this stuff. And 4 or 5 years later, then you're running the club and you're going to collegiates, and we won collegiates like 3 years in a row. And we formed all these lifelong relationships and teammates. And then we were like, let's just keep this thing going, and that's what took us all to DeLand.
Do you remember the moment or the minutes of first meeting Shannon Pilcher?
Yeah, I listened to his podcast, which was also amazing. Probably like a lot of redundancy, I would think, for our listeners or your listeners. But yeah, I met him. I had like maybe 150 jumps, maybe 120 jumps. I don't even know, but we were recruiting for a slot on the 4-way team, and he was coming up through student status as a part of this fraternity where another teammate of ours had already started jumping too. So we were like target lock on Shannon, and you're going to be, and he was doing 4-way with us right off student status, so like 45 jumps. We were already, we were going to be world champions. We're going to be national champions. We had this really early dream seeding that happened because of all this. We had already had this lineage at Georgia Tech of champions. Chris Gay, another amazing mentor and friend for life, was snatched me up when I had 150 jumps and threw me on a crew team. And then I went to nationals at 19 and was throwing together, world-class crew formations. And I was reared under a amazing mentor group of leaders and in the Georgia scene and then in the national crew scene. Anything I wanted to do, there was all these doors just kept opening, you know what I mean? And it was an amazing start, for sure.
When I try and have empathy and think back to that time, there almost seems like there's an audacity about your group at Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
And also a little bit of naivete, like, hey man, we're just going to go and be champions. And yeah, everybody says that for the sport that they're really passionate about. You guys went ahead and did that.
Yeah, it was a long road.
In time.
It was a long road, but we definitely had like-minded, focused guys that all shared the same vision, and anybody who does formation skydiving and 4-way knows that it's the team chemistry that is what it's all about. If you do enough jumps and you practice and have good coaches, you're gonna learn what you need to learn. But the like-mindedness and the approach, the engineering mindset, even towards incremental change and making plans and structured training and doing whatever we needed to do to make it happen. The equation was there, and like any success, it's about less about the individual and the sum of the parts. And that's what we had. We had this amazing group of guys all focused on the same thing. And we didn't have anybody that deviated, from the vision. It was like, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it, and it's going to be A, B, C, D, and lots of bumps along the way. But I surrounded myself with amazing people and friends, and yes, we did it. We eventually got there. Not in the original way or thought that we were going to, it actually wasn't even the same team. Two of our teammates, Kyle and David, ended up choosing other paths in life, and they went as far as they were able to go, which was very high level, World Cup level competition, national level competition. Life sort of took them other directions, and Shannon and I were sort of left. Okay, well, let's just keep doing what we talked about doing, and doors kept opening, and we got where we needed to be or wanted to be, but it was very much not as we had designed it, ironically.
Was there ever concern from your families, we'll say for you and Shannon, where you guys are brilliant guys, you are engineering minds, you go to a fabulous university, Georgia Tech, and then you move to DeLand, and Shannon's working as like an editor or writer for Skydiving magazine. I can't recall where you worked, but not maybe fully implementing or utilizing your prestigious degrees to chase the skydiving dream. Do I have that right?
No, quite the contrary. Shannon was sort of the exception. He had an amazing career going in the building construction side of Atlanta. He actually built and was project manager for everybody goes through it, so I can use it as a reference. The entire T concourse in the Atlanta airport was under Shannon's management and direction as a young building construction engineer out of Georgia Tech. So he gave all that up and moved to DeLand to become a Skydiving magazine reporter, ironically. And of course, he did that amazingly as well. But the other three of us actually did use our degrees. I ended up working as a industrial systems engineer at PD for about 2 to 3 years. I implemented an entire manufacturing systems software ERP solution that kind of melded all their systems together, and then some other engineering related stuff, IT related stuff that they had me working on. Kyle and David, the other two on the team, took up engineering roles and completely revamped at the time Vector or UPT Relative Workshop. They were the brand new first major engineering hires for UPT, and a lot of Kyle's influence still lives on in the rigs and the Collins lanyard, things of that nature. The entire Micron redesign was so we were implementing our degrees. Parents were giving us a lot of flack. We were sort of making the dream happen, but still using what we had. And then eventually it was sort of like we're jumping more and more, we're working less and less. And then the factory team project sort of landed in our lap, which sort of was a major intersection point for all of us. Long answers.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Definitely didn't mean to paint you guys as DZ bums like no. I nearly just did.
No, you didn't. We were all crammed in a house, definitely living the bachelor's life and living the cheap and spending all our money on training and eating ramen and doing all the same things you could do. But we were doing our best to create value for ourselves with the industry so that we would have the freedom to do the training and pursue our real goals while we were in DeLand.
While you all were doing that, you were on a 4-way team. If I'm not mistaken, it was Genesis. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
And that team was very successful.
Yeah. We sort of climbed the amateur ranks quickly and had great coaching, and we were passionate and had a lot of fire towards the bigger picture. And of course we wanted to be airspeed. We were worshiping Craig and Dan and Jack and the guys, Mark, and just like everything that they were doing was like what we imagined ourselves doing someday. And of course their culture, which you know so well, their culture was all about, hey, these guys get it, like let's help them along the way here. Let's along this path. And we actually had an amazing opportunity, Crossroad as Genesis, to join Airspeed at one point when they were starting another 8-way project, and it almost happened if not for the factory team project, which came up around that time.
Let's talk about the factory team project. Yeah. And I hate to want to generalize.
Yeah.
But when you think of Canopy pilots today, mm-hmm. It feels like the majority of them are free flyers, not necessarily formation skydivers that are sort of hot on the circuit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That are competing at FLCPA meets and that type of thing. So share with us, how did the PD factory team project fall in your laps as you more or less described?
The departure the redirect of our two original teammates, Kyle and David, sort of opened a door for Performance Designs to the timing was such that this idea came up right around the time that they chose to move on. Shannon and I were given this commission. This is the idea. Please go find two teammates. The early era of swooping had just started, the golden era, kind of like early competitions, blade running stuff. Those like the Icarus Team Extreme project was already out there. They were out there doing this amazing stuff. Early competitions were happening. And so it was like, this makes a lot of sense. Let's make this Canopy team happen. And so we went out and got our butts kicked by actually the two teammates that we ended up choosing, which were Heath and Jay Maletsky. Shannon and I showed up at this meet in Paris, as I think I shared with you at the fireside chat. But we were like, we got this. We got 10,000 jumps together. our shit don't stink, kind of thing. And here's the first two-way competition ever. We're obviously going to win this. And we didn't even need to train. We just got done a huge four-way training camp. So it's like, let's just do our thing. And Heath and Jay were just like talking to one another, communicating. They had this amazing vibe. They were training together. We're watching the results, and then they beat us. So we went back to PD and said, these guys, who ironically were much different mentality types. They were free spirits, free flyers, very creative mindsets. And so we got this mishmash that happened, I think, as well, which was Shannon and my four-way formation, structured, performance-driven based approach to learning, plus these free thinkers and these free flyers with no boundaries. Like when we put that together, it was an amazing stew of awesome, of possibility. Like, what can we do? Okay, yeah, we could do that. Let's make that happen. This is how we'll do it. And PD was there, like, yeah, guys, go. Do these things, make these things happen, fly where people hadn't flown before, do these, and so it just was like an amazing wave cresting that we were on, and it was great timing with great support and amazing teammates,
At our fireside chat at PIA, I mentioned that there was an era pre-iPhone, and I think iPhone came out in 2007 or 8.
Yeah.
The thing that you did at the drop zone was you either played with a hacky sack in a circle on a weather day,
mm-hmm.
or you sat in the hangar on the beat up couches and you watched PD factory team videos. And I mean, I remember the cover. I can see it. And, throwing in the DVD and watching the most incredible visuals that you would ever see, and just going, wow. You guys were in some of the most exotic. I just remember like a lot of mountains.
Yeah.
And I also recall the way that everyone flew in sync. I'd never seen that before, where if someone's going left, everybody's going left, and landing together in sequence.
Yeah.
On final approach. And God, it was like, these guys are hot. Everywhere you turned, in every magazine, it was PD factory team. It seemed like PD gave you guys carte blanche, like whatever you can dream up, we'll support. Is that more or less how that was? Because that's very forward thinking.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a huge amount of belief in what we wanted to do and our vision for what was possible with these canopies, amazing canopies that they were designing, and then the backing to create targets or create goals and then get us there. There was, kind of two fronts, the competition front and then the pioneering front with the expeditions. We actually had like all these different departments within the team. Different teammates would run different departments. I was running the expedition stuff. Jay was handling the competition side. Another individual was handling something else, and we kind of did this divide and conquer thing. And so we could focus where our passions were within the team and bring our best self towards those ideas. And yeah, PD was totally, their support was unprecedented, and they actually were seeing, velocity sales uptick and things. So the marketing, from a marketing standpoint, it was working. It was great timing. It was a symbiotic, we got what we wanted to do, which was do the things we wanted to do. And it was a mutually kind of beneficial, definitely an amazing ride to be a part of. And still, like, it's 20 plus years, it's still going, and they're still amazingly supportive of the vision and the dream. We were just lucky to be, there when it started, and also the kind of the catalyst, I think, behind a lot of the energy. And they saw that. Yeah. Amazing experience for sure. It's so many good memories.
If you're a fan of the 20-Minute Call, I'd like to invite you to be a member of a budding community with me on Patreon. By becoming a patron of the show, you can join me behind the scenes to discuss options for future guests and gain access to some show swag. It's pretty sweet. Details on how to become a patron can be found in the show notes. Okay, back to the show. Like what you guys did then, I don't really see it happening now. You know what I mean? These exotic video, I don't know if it's because, just the budget for something like that today is probably so over the top, or that you guys already did it and maybe there's new frontiers to conquer. But why are we not seeing the things that we saw? Because it was so extraordinary, and I just haven't really seen anything like that since.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been sort of noting that myself. It's like there's definitely some people still doing amazing things in the air, flying stunt wise, and but there was this intersection of sky and land, if you will, or the capabilities of the parachutes got to a point where we were able to we had Formula One race cars that could do things that allowed certain things to happen. We had mentors already doing, we were sort of reinventing certain elements. So you mentioned the formation flying stuff, the early, it's flocking now, but 20 years ago, it was just the factory team doing stuff together dynamically. But airspeed was landing in formation. We were like, every time we'd show up at the nationals or world meet, we were like, as the college kids, I'm talking about, the young kids watching airspeed, wanting to be airspeed, were like, they're coming in, they're landing together. That is so cool. We are doing that, but we're going to one up it. Like we're going to take it to another level, which is what a lot of things do now, which is just like, you're not the inventor of it. You're just sort of like taking it to a new notch. So we were like, okay, Blue Angels, we're going to be the Blue Angels of the skydiving world. We're going to adopt their mentality, their level of precision. We're going to fly as tight as possible. We're going to land as tight as possible. And it was sort of a side unspoken rule that when we traveled together, the first jump on a drop zone, we were going to intentionally rip a 4-way formation landing right over the top of the drop zone itself, like the buildings and everything, and just be like, we are here, rip it in. And nobody was doing that at the time, right? So, we had a little bit of carte blanche because it's like, oh, it's a PE factory team. It doesn't matter if they buzz the building, that kind of stuff. And so we had certain luxuries that people were affording us and allowing us to do things like even Norway as an example. Like we showed up there and we were like, can we go fly these mountains, that nobody's ever flown before? And the parachuting and skydiving community, the drop zone was like, whoa, as long as we get land permission for you to land, yeah, like you guys are the experts. Yeah, you can do what you want to do, So it was like we had this amazing the doors just would open wherever we would go because of the reputation and then the company's backing and this sort of the professionalism we tried to relay. And, so it was like when the Blue Angels show up, you don't go, are these guys going to be all right? They're good. They've got it, and that was sort of like another set of mentors for us, I think, at least for me anyway.
As a consumer of watching you all, and from a marketing standpoint, there was this brand that was set with Factory Team that definitely stood apart where, everyone was wearing the same apparel. And, I remember, I think one of your sponsors was Oakley, and we'd never seen like a big brand associated with a skydiving team.
Yeah.
Or at least I don't recall that. And, the matching canopies, everything was like the Blue Angels.
Yeah.
And man, it was, from a marketing standpoint, it was absolutely perfect. It was so good.
Yeah.
So you're in DeLand, you're in the breeding ground of so much skydiving talent. And then there's also the Flight-1 component here, which is, I guess, I know Scott Miller, who's a longtime friend of mine, is part of this with his Freedom of Flight school. But the intersection with Scott and the development of Flight-1, and I mean, just share the basics of that with us, please.
Yeah. Also an amazing, I listened to the Scott's podcast with you, and I just I loved every minute of it. He's such an amazing speaker, an amazing person, and just like a great communicator, as we both know. It was another match made in heaven, I think, so to speak, because what he was doing was pioneering in the educational space. And then what we ended up doing as high performance pilots is shifting more away from the engineering and regular jobs towards the coaching space and capitalizing on the successes and teaching more the high performance competitive realm. Scott had developed this amazing essential skills course program based on his exposure as a test jumper for PD and his knowledge base and just his natural educational mind that he has as a pioneer. And he was out, like literally a Pied Piper of Canopy coaches every weekend. That nobody was doing that. Nobody was doing that except for Scott at the time. Maybe it was a handful of people in Europe doing it, but he was way ahead of his time. And our vision for what we wanted to do with the team was to collectively combine ourselves into this collaborative energy of all of our teachings, instead of it just being the Shannon Pilcher show, the Jay show, and the Ian show. When you show up, it's the PD Factory team. We did camps together. We absorbed each other's teachings. Our methodologies became shared. And then it was like, we need to take care of ourselves. Let's make a company. Let's make a company to coach together and put all this under the same umbrella. And let's have a place where we can take care of ourselves. Let's have health insurance. What a novel concept for skydivers, right? Like, let's build a company so that we can have some longevity in the sport. And then Scott was just doing his thing in parallel at the time, around 2003-ish, 2004-ish, I think it was the timeline, and maybe even earlier than that. So we decided to do like a combined camp, factory team and freedom of flight. Scott was handling the essential skills stuff, and we were doing some of the high-end stuff. And then it was like, after that, it was like, come on, man, let's just put all this into one big bucket. And that was the birth of Flight-1. And he, as you know, didn't stick around much right after that. He sort of burned himself out as an educator in the skydiving world and changed frequencies and went to another pursuit. But man, he was a catalyst and a kickstart that, in terms of what he brought to the table, not only for vision, but just his mannerisms, his teachings. Like, a lot of his stuff still lives on in what we still teach today. Like, it's a body of work, that grew out of those early beginnings. So,
having attended a few of his classes and hired him when I was a drop zone manager, I always remember Scott using his gator sunglasses with, I guess, the croquis as, showing as a canopy and how it performs. And for those who've been in skydiving for a while, it used to be Flight-1 was a few guys that would travel and teach.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people knew that behind the scenes, this was becoming a very big business. Obviously, as you break into the military training world, and really almost to a degree, I mean, you absolutely have the majority of the market share in the world of skydiving for canopy training, certainly in the US. And obviously, you've got presence abroad with, teammates in Dubai and other places. So, I mean, could you have dreamed that this business would become as big of a business as it's become?
Definitely not. Definitely didn't see it coming. Like, it was very much grew out of its own successes, its own. I like to think it grew because it was founded upon the concept of a team, and the team did something bigger than the sum of their parts. And then we just kept drawing in these amazing individuals to this collective. And then their thoughts, much like the stuff with Scott, their thoughts, their principles, their concepts just bolstered what was already there and just made it stronger and stronger and stronger. So it just refined itself in this collaborative way over time, and very much an intentionality that is the way we still operate as a company. Is, yes, it's gotten really big, but we still take a great deal of pride and effort in the concept of, we get the entire posse together every 2 years, and it is a huge collaborative exchange, review, training slash enhancement of the whole that happens. And that's why it keeps getting bigger and bigger, in my opinion, is that because it's like it's this gravitational force. When we're fortunate to have just had some this team concept. People like to be part of things bigger than themselves, and I think we were founded on a good core, and that's sort of why it's continued to roll the way it has. And it's not the me show. It's not the he show or the her show. It's like it's bigger than themselves, and there's a lot of pride in the cadre about that carries the torch. I think it's a huge sense of pride. I can't even begin to. There's no way we could have imagined it to get to where it is,
And now you're developing not just training, but now training tools like, the PLA and obviously the SIM or the S1M.
Yeah.
Now you produce products. It's how many team members are with Flight-1?
We've got 55 instructors worldwide, approximately, and about half of those are active military focused, maybe about 20, I'd say. And then the remainder are spread around the world in key locations. They're the champions. They're the local heroes, the great instructors, the humble warriors that kind of are out there that are just love to teach and love to jump, and they love being a part of what we've done. And honestly, the instructors, the curriculum's amazing. It's like super refined over 20 years, but the people, the instructors, the family are really the product when it comes down to it. So it's the interaction that somebody has with the instructor that makes the connection to the brand. It can go either way, right? Like if it's not a good instructor relationship, the brand's no good, So it's really about that. And I definitely didn't see it coming. And the same thing happened with some inventors in the tech world. They saw us out there in the field working and doing our thing, and then said, "Hey, you know what? This is something that I could latch onto and take my product somewhere to new heights." So I've been pretty fortunate as the engineer to be the funnel point for a lot of those great ideas, and then just trying to make them better, and then like apply all of our teaching knowledge and educational knowledge towards that product to make sure it's used properly and safely, and like the curriculums that back it up. And so, yeah, we're definitely blessed by this whole new chapter that is it's also like what I think is like another wave is building. We just unleashed a big part of it in terms of changing the way people train. I think because simulator training has been around for 20 years. It's not a new thing, but everybody gets sick in the existing simulators. In our simulator, you're moving through space dynamically, and you have a real feel. Your G-forces, you're loading in the harness. Everything is the fan that you mentioned on your face changes as you slow down and speed up. It's like all about the feel, and we create that environment for realism. Then the training value just goes like this from before. It was like a game, sort of like a novelty type experiences with the current simulators on the market, and ours is like, oh yeah, I can actually feel what this turn feels like, and I can do a real malfunction where I'm spinning around. And
Ian, can you make me understand a sense about who you are as a person from the standpoint that well, let's start there. How would you describe yourself to somebody if someone say, "Hey, I met," Let's keep it simple. How would you describe yourself?
You had to go here, didn't you, James? I love it. I love the details, obviously. I love to understand the way things work. And, the engineering mindset, I think I'm a talker, as you can tell. I like to talk. So I got this desire to be understood. So that sort of a teacher, a guide, a creator, I don't know, a goal setter. I think most people would describe I have a pretty big heart, a humbleness about like myself and the way I walk and what I say, and thoughtful. How's that?
And I'll tell you what, the reason why I asked that question is I want to know the ingredients. If I want to be successful, the way that you have lived your life and the name Ian Bobo is synonymous with excellence. PD Factory Team, not just excellence on the podium, but excellence in how you all carried yourselves. With your four-way teams, excellence, national champions, world champions in Canopy piloting. Flight-1, it's easy to start a business. It's very difficult to maintain and grow a business. But you've had that path of success. I'm not trying to puff you up, but there is some ingredients here, Ian, that keeps churning out success after success after success after success. What is the red thread that runs through all of this level of success in your estimation?
A running theme with a lot of my verbiage has been the team concept, right? So I would consider myself a very good teammate. I would consider myself as somebody that seeks out and surrounds myself by people that inspire me, and that I've been fortunate enough to have amazing teammates throughout this entire journey. So like none of this would have happened perhaps without that notion, right? So surround yourself with those that inspire you or that are of like mind, like spirit, and that builds you up and support your dreams. That was sort of like it. I think they're their dreams too. Fortunately for me, none of these organizations none of these teams would have gotten anywhere without the individual passions, right? It's got to be that, right, James? It's got to be the individual desire and focus, curiosity, whatever you want to call it, to explore, combining that with those that had similar mentalities and similar ideas and similar outlooks. It couldn't have gotten where it has today without that notion. And then it sort of like draws in all this awesome around you, and then you're next thing you know, you're looking around and like, where did this company come from? We've been doing this for 15 years. Certainly a lot of bumps and cracks and holes and hurdles along the way to overcome, but you do it together, and it makes it possible, right?
It sounds very simple, but I also think that there has to be a lot of intentionality. Clearly, you have created alignments with people that share your values. That seems very, very clear. Let me ask you, we know all the successes of Ian Bobo. Are there failures of Ian Bobo?
Yeah, I think, like anybody, I think I've tried to live a life of balance, between personal pursuits, professional pursuits, and relationship and family, like all these core areas of but I wouldn't say I've failed in any of those areas, but I would say that like at times, you must obsess or put a lot of your energy in one area to focus, and at the sacrifice of other areas in your life, whether it be personal pursuits, like I've been wanting to learn to fly, get my pilot ratings for like 15 years now. You know what I mean? I have not done that. So I would consider that a failure. Like you did not do something for just you. The pressures and effects that your choices have on your relationship, your relationships. I think those are, I wouldn't say I've failed, but I would say that, this is an area of weakness because of choices that you do your best, to form that balance. But at times it's not it's not balanced, and you have to, make it work and make mistakes and charge on, right. And reset and always keep learning. Without failures, you don't learn. You have to have them in the mix, and you don't grow without how many different iterations it takes before you get a successful, combination for things to work. And various teams, they show that to us all the time, right? I don't know. I'm pretty happy with my life, James. Like, I've been blessed, man. I honestly can't. Ton of failures. I definitely feel like I've been blessed with my choices and happy with my life, for sure.
This podcast is sponsored by Beyond Marketing, the digital marketing agency for the skydiving industry. Now, I'm not a fan of lots of ads during a podcast. I mean, who likes ads? So I'll stop talking about how marvelously wonderful Beyond Marketing is. But if you're curious about what the amazing people of Beyond Marketing do to help drop zones and manufacturers thrive, then you should check out their website at dropzone.marketing. That's dropzone.marketing. You seem to have very good self-awareness, Ian. You've not succumbed to the hype that has been built also around you and your success. I observe key people in the industry that have built positive reputations, like yourself or Shannon or Craig or Dan BC, when the observation is you walk on a drop zone, and there are, I don't want to call them followers, but they're people that want to engage, and it's like you can't really walk 5 feet for all the people going, oh, hey, but it's as if you haven't become tired of it, and yet you also, or it doesn't appear that you have become tired of it. Sometimes somebody will walk in a room and I can feel their energy, that they know they're a big deal. And you are like the opposite of that. So the question here is, how have you been able to stay so grounded through all of your journey? A factory team, Flight-1 that continues. You've been in every magazine. You've been written about everywhere. You're on social media by other people on the routine.
How do I stay grounded? That's a tough one, James. I guess I've always been comfortable with myself and happy with who I am, and comfortable being alone. I used to spend like a ton of time in my youth fairly isolated. I would consider myself more of a, not a recluse, but just like not needing the energy of others around me to feed myself. So I'm completely comfortable not being in that space, and quite uncomfortable when I am in that space. Actually, like I don't like being on podiums. I don't really. I mean, I don't like being in the limelight. There's just a very thankful for the humility that comes from within. I don't know why that is, but I feel like, it comes from our roots, my father was a pastor, super my mother was a guide, a counselor, a therapist, it wasn't about them, they were served, they were a representative of the church, of healing, of a something bigger than themselves. So they didn't need to be anything other than themselves, and that did the job, So I had a absolutely amazing childhood up until I was 16, and they ended up divorcing. But it was a totally nuclear family with this amazing upbringing, and I just was very I had a really good roots, I call it. So it's like I just feel like I was very grounded, ready to be anything I wanted to be, sort of a thing. So long-winded answer, like typically with me, James, but I sort of find my own answers, as you probably noticed. Shannon would recognize this trait in me.
And I'm always interested to know about crossroads moments in life, where maybe you meet somebody that ends up being instrumental in the trajectory of your life, that maybe on that first meeting you had no idea, it just seemed like a chance, or that you would have agreed to something that maybe you normally wouldn't, or maybe you would turn something down that didn't make sense to turn it down, but it ended up being just a pivotal decision in your life. And I'm always curious to know about those small moments that have big impact. Can you identify one of those moments?
Like a particular individual, a crossroads moment, or just a decision that I made?
I'll give you an example.
I
used to be a golf professional, and I
didn't know that, James. I'm going to start getting some lessons, man.
I used to be a golf professional, and one day there was this old Chevy Astro van. My listeners have heard the story so many times, but it was such a pivotal moment that Chevy Astro van that's kind of beat up and it's got this old branding on it. This is Skydive Carolina Parachute Center, shows up at the golf course. And I go, I'd like to do that one day. And I took an action that forever changed the trajectory of my life, which was I put my business card on the windshield. And then that guy ends up leaving me the brochure that I requested written on my business card. Hey, I've been struggling at golf for 19 years. Let's do a barter trade. And that barter trade led me into giving golf lessons for that first tandem, then through AFF, then into fun jumping as much as I could. And that relationship with Danny Smith from Skydive Carolina blossomed into me running his drop zone eventually. And had I not taken the simple act, Ian, of putting my business card on the windshield, I am not speaking to you right now.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I wish I could narrow down into one moment like that is that poignant. But I will highlight a crossroads that certainly would have affected the rest of my life, I believe. But and it's most people don't know about it either. But when I was a Top Gun baby, right? So I was like raised by a pilot, loved all things aviation, all things aircraft, had not started jumping yet, was coming out of high school. I was like, I am going to be a jet pilot. I am going to be Tom Cruise. I had really good grades, an amazing resume, everything that was required to go after at the time. I was really attached to the idea of the Air Force Academy. So I'm a high school student. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the Air Force Academy. I'm going to fly jets I'm going to join the military. My father was, he didn't actually serve, but he had a military mindset. He was big junior ROTC guy. And I was sort of drawn to it. You know what I mean? And I did all this stuff that you got to do to get into the academy, which is ridiculously extensive. You got to get a senator or a House level representative to elect you to go. It's like you're applying to like 3 colleges just to get into the academy, and these huge competitive, like hundreds and hundreds of people. They have like 5 slots to give every year. It was very competitive. I got into the Air Force Academy as a high school senior, and I was going, and I went to the physical fitness test and the day of health probes that they send you to. They send you to a local base. They run you through all these physical fitness tests, and they hook you up to all these machines, and they're literally testing your makeup. And of course, I did fine with all the physical fitness stuff. And they got in and they found something. They found there's something. Your heart, it's like it's a murmur. You got something going on there. I'm like, what? I'm fine. I'm like, I don't have anything wrong with me. And they're like, well, it's not a big deal. It's just, you can't be a pilot. You can't fly jets. You could be a navigator though. You could still go to the Air Force Academy and be a navigator, and then, sign up for the 12 years that you have to commit to, and all the, like, it's 5 years at the academy plus 7 years after that. And I was like, no, dude, I'm a pilot. I am not going to sit in the back seat. And so I turned it down. I'm like, I'm not going. And instead I went where it was cheap in my backyard at the time, because I finished high school in Atlanta. I'm going to Georgia Tech. And then I jumped that summer, right? Made my first jump. And then the irony here, James, is that at my first collegiates, we're competing against the Air Force Academy and all the cadets. And I could have been one of those. I might have ended up jumping. You never know. I probably would have, but I certainly would have not turned into the career of jumping that happened. But that was sort of a major, like, pivotal change, was me turning down a navigator slot at the Air Force Academy. So that's my crossroads. And the rest is history, as they say, so to speak. I never would have thought that I never could have dreamed it. You know what I mean? What ended up happening because of that one choice,
I'm so glad you shared that story. Wow.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. It's lesser known, but definitely I've shared it with a few cadets, actually, because we proceeded to then go to Georgia Tech and then kick the Air Force Academy's butt for the next 3 years. So I told a couple of them, I think. And then I shared this story most recently. I went down to the collegiates in Z Hills. Mary Lou and Bill Winger asked me to speak there. And so I did share that, I think, with that group. But yeah, definitely some history.
Wow.
Very thankful.
What a journey. The challenge with a 1 hour podcast is there's so many stories from your career that we haven't been, and I'd like to invite you back sometime, Ian. I'll give you a little bit of a break from me. We've been together at PIA Symposium a couple times, and
sure.
But I would love to talk about some of the adventures that you've been on, and but I wish to thank you for your time and really for being, man, just a class act, Ian. You're a class act in how you represent yourself. And I do want to share this with our audience. During PIA Symposium, they have this thing called Fireside Chat where I get to moderate with people. And we had yourself and Shannon Pilcher and JC Coquelicoeur on stage. And I will say, my takeaway from our time together was, wow, look at this brotherhood. This is rare. The respect that I felt that each of you had for each other, and also the wish that some of your other brothers were also with us. It was just a beautiful thing to see. Everything that I have observed about you guys, it's authentic, it's real. We're not playing up, for the socials. It's just who you all are. And that, to me, is what makes you and your teammates so refreshing, is just comfortable in my own skin. And it's beautiful.
Thank you, James. Thank you for seeing us, who we are, and bringing your authenticness about the people that you invite to share space with you. I think it's a mutual energy that you draw in, because you really do see people for who they are, and I'm very thankful for that, and that opportunity with my brothers, for sure. Like, you got it nailed, for sure. You got it figured out.
Thank you. It's been an honor, and I look forward to us doing this again sometime in the future, where we dig into some more of your stories of your incredible career. Thank you, Ian.
Yeah, thank you, James. I appreciate the opportunity, man.
It's been great.
Really value it. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to the 20-Minute Call podcast. Please do follow us on your podcast app so you always have the latest episode, which is released every Monday. If you want to contact the team, our email address is podcast@beyondmarketing.xyz. This episode was edited and engineered by Garnet Znydrick of the YouTube channel Blue Skies Fun Days. Thanks for listening, and join us next week for our next episode.